Up until about a decade ago, if you had gone to a bar and ordered a beer, you would have likely ended up with a nice cold pint of Kingfisher or Carlsberg. Or if you were of the bougier variety, maybe you wouldn't have minded splurging on a Corona or a Hoegaarden. Don't get me wrong, all four are perfectly good beers. So good, in fact, that for the longest time they were the only options available on the average liquor menu. This largely had to do with the brewing companies that were manufacturing these beers. So, United Breweries for Kingfisher, AB InBev for Hoegaarden and Corona, and Carlsberg for, well, Carlsberg. These three multinational brewing companies dominated the scene for a really long time. And they were so big that there was very little room for anyone else to thrive in the brewing space. Unfortunately, that also meant there was very little room for experimentation. So, for quite a while, the beer scene in India was honestly pretty boring. They were all essentially the same thing in different packaging. And that's not just me talking, that's what Oliver Shroff, co founder of Dulali, the 15-year-old Mumbai based craft brewery, told the Ken recently. Now, all of that changed after 2015 when Bira was launched, and beer suddenly became cool again. You see, Bira introduced India to craft beer. For the uninitiated, craft beer is generally made in smaller batches, which usually allows its makers to experiment with ingredients and flavors. Before Bira, there were a handful of craft and premium beer brands in India, but unfortunately, until then, they were very, very niche. Bira managed to make craft beer mainstream. The brand started the conversation around things like taste and quality, and it very quickly blew up and became the cool new beer to drink at a bar or at a party. The craft beer brand also managed to become a hit among investors. It bagged $450 million in funding from the likes of Japanese beer and beverage company Kirin Holdings and venture capital giant Peak 15 Partners, formerly known as Sequoia Capital. But somewhere along the way, the brand seems to have lost direction. In the last few years, Bira has been in short supply at liquor retailers and at pubs. And to make matters worse, former Bira executives and industry insiders say that the company is dealing with a major cash crunch and its supply chain is in a dire state. Now, this couldn't have come at a worse time because Bira CEO Ankur Jain recently said that Bira is planning its IPO in 2026. But will he be able to get his business in order by then? And more importantly, what went wrong? Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Rahil Philippos, and I'll be joining my colleague Snigdha Sharma every week to bring you one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd of July. You know how we were just talking about craft beers and how at the core of a great craft beer is great taste and great quality? Well, that's also at the core of Bira's brand. Except to maintain that quality, Bira took a few calls pretty early on that didn't work out so well in the long run. You see, when it started out in 2015, Bira was brewing its beer in Belgium. This is because the company didn't believe India had good enough breweries. And people in the business seemed to agree. In fact, Dulali co-founder Oliver Shroff said that's exactly what set Bira apart. That's why its quality was so amazing, at least initially. But of course, in the long run, importing costs were just too high. And as demand started to rise, the company decided to move its supply chain to India. So now Bira had three options. Number one was setting up its own brewery, where it would be responsible for supplying all the raw materials and also taking care of all the manufacturing. Number two was contract manufacturing. Here it would supply the raw materials, but manufacturing would be taken care of by a third-party brewer. Now, before I tell you about the third option, which Bira eventually opted for, I'm going to tell you why these two options didn't work. You see, setting up its own brewery would have been way too expensive for Bira at the time, especially considering that it was only a year and a half old. The second option, contract manufacturing, would mean that Bira had less of a say in how its beer was being manufactured. So it didn't think it would be able to make its characteristic, unique beer styles. And by default, this was ruled out too. For Bira, the brewery leasing model was its sweet spot. Here, it would be able to supply its own raw materials and also take care of manufacturing. Except it would do all of this in a brewery owned by someone else. And this is exactly where the company's problems began. The Ken spoke to multiple former Bira executives, and none of them knew what the intent was behind the strategy. There were no tax breaks or incentives for doing it. In many ways, it actually ended up backfiring. For starters, when the company eventually ended up bringing its supply chain to India, despite its best efforts, it couldn't maintain the original quality and taste. Someone who runs two microbreweries here in Bangalore told the Ken that this was largely because of the quality of malt and water being used in the brewing process here in India. Then there was the huge operational expenses associated with staffing a third party's brewery with its own labor. Not to mention the process of setting up the supply chain in India itself took 2 years to execute. So now, all these years later, Bira is doing exactly what it had avoided for so long. The company has now bit the bullet and has been working on setting up a brewery in the southern state of Karnataka, and was expected to have been operational this year. And this brings us to Bira's other big problem, a shortage of working capital. Stay tuned.
Hi there, I'm Snigdha, and I'm just here to express my gratitude to you for listening to us and for supporting us. I have some great news. Daybreak is going to hit 1 million downloads this week. It's crazy. And obviously, it wouldn't have been possible without you making it a part of your day every single day. Rahil and I would love to know more about how Daybreak is a part of your daily routine. Do you listen to us in the morning while making breakfast, or while going to work, or when you're coming back from work? How do you feel when you listen to an episode? Anything that you'd like to share about your Daybreak experience, we want to hear from you. You can write to us at podcast@theken.com. I'll add the email to the show notes of this episode, or if you prefer, you can also send us your message as a voice note to the same email ID. Let us know soon. Thank you, and now back to Rahil.
Up until pretty recently, no one would know that Bira was dealing with a major shortage of working capital. It had managed to sign some pretty impressive sponsorship deals, including one with the International Cricket Council or ICC. And nationally, its market share has only grown in the last few years. It's gone from less than 1% to nearly 8% for premium beer. But that's exactly where the problem lies. It hasn't been able to keep up with the surge in demand. You see, the beer business is a tricky affair compared to other liquors because of low margins and shelf life. Then there's also the added transport and logistics cost. And then, of course, there's also regulators to worry about, because each Indian state has its own laws and regulations around alcohol. All of this started adding up, and Bira faced a shortage of working capital. Ironically, the company had also invested heavily in setting up new plants, but wasn't able to pay its dues to suppliers and marketing partners. The result? Well, former employees say the breweries didn't have the raw materials to stay afloat and would end up sitting idle for days. And then there were the vendors. The company, in some instances, was unable to pay royalty fees and promotional expenses to marketing partners. So employees recall messy situations where vendors landed up at the corporate office in Delhi and raised hell over unpaid dues. And as the crisis snowballed, issues started surfacing internally too. Salaries were delayed and senior leadership started resigning. But despite all of this, Bira CEO Ankur Jain is still optimistic. He insists that the company's volumes have grown nearly 3x since pre-COVID levels, and revenues are growing too. And what really helps is that investors don't seem to have lost faith in the brand. More on that in the next segment. Bira is in the habit of setting some unattainable targets for itself. And more often than not, it misses them completely. Like in 2020, when Bira planned to break even on an EBITDA basis by 2022. Spoiler alert, that didn't end up happening. But that didn't deter Jain in 2023 from saying that the company would attain EBITDA profitability within that fiscal year. If anything, its EBITDA losses have only widened to 43% of the top line in June 2023. But for some reason, it still keeps managing to raise funding continuously, sometimes even multiple times a year. Most recently, it was able to raise $25 million earlier this year. This is how the company keeps making things work. Some people say Jain is persuasive enough to convince people to invest in his company, even though they should know better. A former executive said that the company is still betting on the market to turn around for itself. So instead of shutting down some plants, the brand is now trying to launch new categories like strong beer, ciders, and hard seltzers. But what after all that? Well, one former Bira executive said that the next step would be an acquisition by one of the big three or its largest shareholder, Kirin. But Jain says that that is completely out of the question. Instead, he's planning on an IPO in 2026, contingent on meeting its internal operating milestones. But one thing is clear, it's going to take a lot more than just optimism for Bira's fate to change.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. Head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the website. Today's episode was hosted by Rahil Philippos, produced by me, Snigdha Sharma, and edited by Rajiv CN.